My name's Richard Kemish, and I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to talk about the new Latvian covered bond law. The Latvian covered bond law was designed to be both compatible with the covered bond directive and with the covered bond laws in both Lithuania and Estonia, where banks often operate across all three countries. So it's very similar in all three countries, and there are special rules to make sure that the transfer of assets between the three countries is as straightforward as possible. The assets which can back covered bonds in Latvia and in the other countries are exactly aligned with the rules in the Capital Requirements Regulation, Article 129. So exactly the same as standard covered bond laws. In any given cover pool, at least 85% of the assets in the pool must be of the primary asset type. So if you have a residential mortgage covered bond, 85% of the underlying assets must be residential mortgages. In addition, there are loan-to-value rules regarding the valuation of the underlying properties, where you can go up to 70% of the loan-to-value for a residential mortgage or 60% for a commercial mortgage. If the asset is in arrears but hasn't yet been written off or defaulted, there are lower numbers applicable. The valuations have to be conducted on at least an annual basis, and the rules regarding that have been specified by the Financial and Capital Markets Committee. The other constraint is that the only member states' assets or secured on assets in member states are allowed to be included in the cover pool. The protection is included primarily in the form of over-collateralization. In line with most countries now, this is 5%, calculated on a nominal value basis, but it can be higher if the Commission decides that it's necessary to protect bondholders' interests on the basis of quarterly stress tests. It can also be higher if the issuer decides on a voluntary basis to include more over-collateralization as a term and condition of the bond. And all three types of over-collateralization, the statutory, the voluntary, and that required by the supervisor, all have equal protection under Latvian law. In addition, you get protection from various typical features. Of course, you're allowed to put derivatives in the cover pool, but they can only be included if they are hedging the underlying market risks. There are strict requirements, in line with most countries, about the format of the documentation and the nature of the counterparties of the derivatives. For example, you're not allowed to have any rights of set-off with other derivatives contracts. You're not allowed to have posting of assets into the collateral support agreement from the cover pool. There's also a test of the liquidity outflows over the next 180 days. That must be covered by eligible assets, which are in line with the normal regulations for liquidity assets. You're allowed to have an extendable maturity structure, a soft bullet, but it's entirely the choice of a hard bullet or a soft bullet is entirely at the discretion of the issuer. If you do choose a soft bullet, though, the events which trigger the extension cannot be at the discretion of the issuer. Finally, if an issuer does go into default, the regulator is allowed to appoint a special administrator, and they must do that if the issuer is in resolution and if it's necessary to protect the interests of investors. On an ongoing basis, a cover pool monitor must be appointed under Latvian law. The entity must be an auditor and is subject to full approval by Commission, and they can be replaced by the Commission if required. Similarly, a special administrator can be appointed in various conditions, as I mentioned, but that is entirely the choice of the administrator. So the Latvian cover bond law, in a nutshell, is going to be completely compatible with the Capital Requirements Directive and regulations. It can only be in the form of European premium covered bonds, and we've got a lot more detail about that on the ECBC website or in the fact book.